let's talk a little bit about the transform options. So here, the transform options that I'm gonna talk about it, you can see it on the side toolbar too. So basically I'm gonna like explain the side toolbar to you. So first thing is the select tool. As you can see, the short key is Q. So there are few shortkeys that you need to memorize them, and like later we are gonna have a quiz on them too, because it's really important and makes the process of 3D modeling or working in 3D much faster for you. So the move tool is the short key is Q, and it's really important. For example, if you're not in the move tool, and like when I'm talking about clicking on the object, delete it, or like doing something, if it is not on the move tool, it's not gonna work. I'm gonna show you later too. And here you can see, if I hover over my mouse again, you see there is a move tool. The short key is W. Also there is a rotate tool. The short key is E. And the scale tool, the short key is R. So it is really important to remember Q, W, E, and R on your keyboard. So right now I am having my select tool activated. If I click on the W, you can see it shows different axes for me. And you know the W is the move tool. So what it means, like based on different axes, I can move my object. So if I am changing a little bit the viewport, the angle to see, so you can see the red, as I talked about it, it's like the x-axis. So if I hold my left button on the mouse and move it, now I see it like I move it based on the x-axis. The green is the y-axis. Now you can see I can move my object based on different axes. And as I zoom in, you can see here like a small square, which is basically the area that if I select it, I can move the whole object without like having a specific axis selected, and like move it more freely where I want to do. Let's press E, which is gonna be the rotation, and you're gonna like practice do it based on different axes. And so again, the blue part is like doing for all of my axes, and R is gonna be the scale tool, and the yellow cube on the center is gonna change the scale based on all axes. It's gonna keep it like the same proportion for everything, but if I don't want to keep the same proportion, I'm gonna target a specific axis that I want. For example, now the red part is gonna be the X, and I'm targeting just X. What is also really important to do, like the short key for undo, is Command or Control Z. So now I do the Control Z, keep it like the original, and now if I hold it like the middle cube and move my mouse, you can see like I'm changing the scale but keeping the same proportion. Also there is another one, T, like another short key, which is like Q W E R, after that is T on your keyboard, which is like the manipulator tool. There is a really important option like subdivision, which is like you can see it in any object, that details of the faces, that which I'm gonna like talk about it more. You can see like I'm adding more subdivision. So it's really important to know more subdivision. It means like more details in your model, but also makes your model more complex. You need to pay attention to the details more to do your 3D modeling, and also More subdivision means like the heavier on the software too. So later when we talk about smooth, if we smooth something, it means like we add a lot of details or subdivision to the shape, to the model, but at the same time it's gonna be much slower for the whole software. One other short key which is really important to know is like F, which is focus or zoom to the object that we selected. It's really important shortcut too. So imagine that I have multiple objects in my scene, and now I'm gonna like work with the details for the cube. If I select it, press F, it goes and like focus, zoom in to the exact selection that I made, which is like super helpful. So right now, as you can see, cube has 6 different sides that it is called faces. Okay, like this is pretty straightforward and easy. So right now, if I click on the T, and if I make the subdivision for each of them too, now I have basically I added like I multiply each faces, the original faces that I had by 2. So right now instead of having um, one face, I just like created 4 faces for each side of my cube. Okay, as you can see. So based on the number of this, I mean like based on these sections, that areas that are divided with these green lines, it means each area is one face. So one other thing that we need to talk about is object mode versus the component mode. When I select my object like this, that you can see it is green, it means like the whole object is selected, and as I move it or like do something with it, you see everything is impacted. So if I go and like change it based on the face mode, it means like select one of these areas. What I can do, I can just like right click on the object and it shows different option for me, and I can just like select between these. So what is really important to know at this point, what are different components that we can select it. One is the object mode, which we select the whole object here. One is face mode, and one other option is based on the vertex or vertices. So as you can see now, points, if you hover over the points, you can see points are activated. So I can impact one point if I select it. And like imagine now if I move that point, this is how I'm going to change my object. The last one is the edge. So I right click again and I choose the edge. As you can see, I can select the edge and I can fake that edge. So you can see I'm like changing that edge, but the edge is connected to other edges too. That's the reason like other faces or like other part of the objects are impacted too. Let's talk about it one more time. We have the object mode, we have the face mode, we have the vertex or vertices mode, and we have the edge mode, 4 of them. One thing that is really important, I told you about these buttons here. If you click on that one, it brings up the modeling toolkit for you. So if you go to the modeling toolkit, you can see there is also a short key here to have easily access to the object selection mode or like other component, which is like a vertices, edge, faces, and the other one is like UV. And also it has the option for multi-component one, which based on the area that you select, it gives you the option to work with all of them at the same time. So, and the short key, you see it's like F7. So if I click on the multi-component, you can see 3 of these highlighted. It means if I select the face selected. If I hover over my mouse to the edge, it's gonna be the edge. If I hover over my mouse to this corner point, then now I'm affecting one of the vertices. Again, I can interact in the viewport by holding the Alt key, but I can't interact with the whole object until I go back to the object mode. I select it here, and now I'm in the object mode, and I can just like move or rotate or do whatever I want with the whole object. Okay, let's talk about few other buttons or tools in the side toolbar, which is important to know. We talked about the move, we talked about uh, move, select, rotation, scale. And here the second icon is also the lasso tool, which I find is really helpful sometimes too when you want to like do modeling. So basically for the lasso tool, so now wanting to remind you again, I had my lasso tool selected and I'm trying to click on the object, and like I realized, okay, I can't click it. Why? And because I'm not in the select tool. That's the reason I'm talking about it. Don't be confused when you try to select something and it is not working. It means like you are in another tool. So I go back to the select tool and I click on my object. Basically, lasso tool is working perfectly with different component selection tools like vertices, edges, or faces, and it is really helpful when you have a lot of subdivisions. It's not gonna work that great with, it's not gonna work with the object mode at all. So what I'm gonna do, I add more subdivision to my object. I change like the values by like moving my mouse and holding the left button key. So I add more details, doesn't matter about like the shape. I want you to see like there are a lot of subdivisions that I have. And now if I go and like go back to the, for example, vertices mode, and if I select the lasso tool, it helps me to select the area that I want specifically. And I click on the tool, like in any tool in Maya, it's like another important thing to know. When I click on any tool, double click on it, it brings up the basically the tool setting of that tool for me. So you can see there is like a red circle. When I hover over my mouse, it means like the size of my brush, that you can also change the radius. As you can see, I changed the radius and it become smaller. But as you can see, like right now, I am selecting with the lasso tool. Like moving the lasso tool and like selecting these. And now if I, for example, move, it's gonna like move all these vertices. You can do the same thing with the face and edge tool. I go back to the lasso tool and I select, for example, this area. Now you can see I'm moving those faces. Here in this area, so it says the panel layout. It's basically the single layout right now. That's the reason I see the perspective view. But also I can have like the 4 panel layouts and I can have like the 2. So what it means, if I select the 4, it means I'm gonna have the top view, perspective view, side view, and front view. And if I make it 2, it's gonna be front and perspective. You can change it too. So I go back to the single one, the short key for that one, which is like also really easy. Press spacebar once, and it's gonna be 4 different views. In order to select the one that you want, hover your mouse to that panel that you want, like the top view. You see my mouse is here, and again press the spacebar. Right now what is happening for your modeling, now you're working in the top view and it shows here in the viewport for you. So I want to, okay, I did something, I made some changes. For example, in this part, if I select just this, you can see it's much easier for me from this view to see like which area that I am affecting from the top view. Okay, for example, I worked in the top view and now I want to go back to the perspective again. Spacebar, go to the perspective view or side view or front, whatever you want. Again, press the spacebar and like now you're working in the area that you want. So basically a space bar is the short key for this. And the last icon is the outliner, which was by default open. So when I told you about the outliner and when you couldn't see it, if you click on the outliner here, show or hide the outliner, this is the short key. But also from the window, I guess, yeah, from the window you can see there is outliner option too. I mean, like, there is one way to have it from the side toolbar, the other way is like from the window and like click on the outliner.